this announcement of elections is not a sudden phenomenon. Before
Yes.
elections are announced, government announces a lot of programs, new
Yes.
schemes. But why this recruitment is not initiated before announcement of elections? Moreover, this is not a new scheme,
Yes.
which under the model code of conduct it cannot be announced. This is a continuous program,
Yeah.
activity of the state. Why it should operate to their disadvantage? Why before announcement of elections, their posts can be filled up because they also have some vote catching potential.
Yes, that's why promises are made. But then by the time this comes about, the state then makes them wait for another 5 years. And sometimes the government, if the Congress government changes to BJP government, then the process has to start all over again. No, it's,
Just to understand, when you say that once the model code of conduct is, the notice has been issued previous to the model code.
yes.
So once the model code of conduct is in place, is it only put in again, or is it terminated altogether?
No, it's yeah, it's not terminated altogether. Then it depends on the next government that comes to power.
Basically, because once the model code of conduct is done,
Yes.
then you can very well proceed with the recruitment process which you have paused for a while.
Yeah, everything goes on is paused, but then the next government decides whether it has to continue or completely discard what was happening before, or like shelve it, not discard really, but shelve it for the for the moment.
The only confusion therefore is that if indeed that notice was not terminated, then how can they float another notice 5 years subsequently saying that we still have to do it? Or is it the continuation?
It is the continuation, but what happens is over the years they reduce the number of vacancies because then they say, okay, now but this time we did a survey and we do not have, or there are sometimes budget constraints, sometimes different arguments are carried forward to say why the position. So every time this has happened, the number of vacancies have gone down, and like what I am trying to argue is that the election model code of conduct is being used to prevent this kind of recruitment. Yeah.
But there is some recruitment do take place during the year. If you say that 460 posts are there, I suppose
Yes.
that some people at some point
Yes.
get hired, no? I mean,
So the most marginalized of the marginalized are hired. For example, widow or handicapped person, or some people who've like had death in the family. Then there's a replacement.
okay, because these people have priority.
Yes, in the order of yes,
Okay.
in the order of hiring the compassionate ones. And so this 2,517 was in Rajasthan, the entire state. Okay, and I'm only talking about Jaipur Municipal Corporation. There have been recruitment in other municipalities.
Why do you think they're not hiring you? I mean, I guess it's guesswork, but
Uh,
It's substantial question indeed.
No, I think I can finish here. And so basically, what this has led to all these people to say, to call the state as a 420 state, which because both the governments, they have been, so this is also involved political clientelism around it. And so the person who's the Bhisti community leader, he was first rallying around the Congress, but when he saw there's nothing coming out of Congress in terms of recruitment, because for them a social his social prestige is at stake if he doesn't get his people recruited in the municipal corporation. So now he's gone towards the BJP, and he's trying to get Vistis recruited through the BJP government. So there has been a lot of political clientelism around it as well.
Since you're saying there hasn't been recruitment all this while, like do you think that
Yes,
there's
last time you got the microphone.
no, it's just a question.
Since there hasn't been recruitment in all this while, do you think that this is basically a trend towards, outsourcing the work to private contractors instead?
Yeah, there
like
is
a deliberate attempt.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
So the outsourcing started even as back as 1970s they started outsourcing. So basically, first of all, it was contractualization of labor, but now there is, since in 2016, a private company has been hired, and there's the whole of sanitation work has been mostly privatized. So door-to-door collection of garbage is privatized. Road sweeping is privatized. So yes, there is, but then there is no, there hasn't been any amendment in the law to actually end municipal, public sector recruitment. So as a result, the communities, both Balmikis and Bistis, they continue to go to court to fight against these. And there's also a nexus, which I actually, basically, this is not a, this is a unfinished work, and I'm still conducting interviews around these. There's also a nexus between private contractors and the political parties. And so what happens is, the private contractors, basically every time recruitment is announced, they go to court, and they ask for stay on some or the other issue. For example, there has been a stay recently on there was a stay in the 2013 recruitment process. There was a stay on, there was a criteria, eligibility criteria based on 2 years of experience. So some people objected, why do we need 2 years of experience for a job which is which does not really require which is not a skilled labor job. So then the ruling was in favor of these people, and this 2-year experience certificate, which was required to be eligible for the job, was removed. And then after that, there was another rule, another stay on another recruitment, another process in the recruitment is recruitment through lottery system. So there again, some private employers, the contractors who went to court, and they asked for, why should there be a stay on the lottery system. So they wanted a stay on the lottery system to and asked for a committee, that there should be a committee to organize the recruitment. But then again, the lottery system was established, like the court ruled in the favor of lottery system. So there is also a lot of labor politics, which is backed by contractors, private contractors, and also because these private contractors have money to go to the court, and so the process is delayed.
Another one factor is that, the demand for Bhisti's work, who used to sprinkle water on this urinals and this footpaths and other places. Now there are two things. Sanitation has become waterborne, and another is, all these places are now so overcrowded. There is hardly any place left where Bhisti can go and sprinkle water, and that must have also caused reduction in demand of their work.
Yes, absolutely. But then the Bistis also, they're still contesting that. Like for example, the Bistis are now making a film, and so this is a whole process of reinventing their identity. So now they are portraying themselves as environment protection protectors. So basically, they say that when you use mechanized tools, machines, or like big tankers to water plants on the street, or to wash urinals, you use a lot of water, and a lot of water is wasted. So, but if you employ a Bhisti who goes with his goat skin bag, it might conserve water, and it might not destroy it. It would preserve plants from, like, saplings from getting destroyed. So there is a new image of Bhisti being portrayed, but I think it's just a part of a small politics. Should not be very effective.
In cantonments, there used to be Bhistis employed, but during last 2 years, new cantonment act, there is no mention of Bhisti. There is no Bhisti anywhere in India under the control of post. And there is hardly been any protest also that why this post have been abolished. But what you are saying, if you see that NDTV program, that is the fate of most of the job seekers, be it railways or other government departments. Hardly any recruitment is taking place.
Yes.
That is another fact.
No, I'm not contesting the fact. I know this is a fact. I'm showing how the fact is maintained.
So, in your view, have the Bhishtis sought to be a part of private? Just use the magic. So, as I understand it, if nobody is being recruited, then it's not a selective bias against the Bhishtis to a larger
No,
extent.
yeah.
There
Yeah.
must be within the sort of.
Yeah.
So, as a larger point, as I take it, it's the private sector crowding out government jobs and
jobs.
therefore entitlements and so forth. Given that that is the case, in your experience, have the Bhishtis tried to participate in the privatization route? Have they set up their own sort of systems whereby they can bid for these tenders, these contracts, etc.?
Not Bhistis, but Balmikis, yes.
So Bhishtis haven't, but Balmikis have.
Balmikis have. Bhistis are already a minority within the Safai Karamchari group.
Right.
So, but most Bhistis have branched out of this and now getting into other jobs.
They're moving out.
Yeah, they're moving out.
So
yes.
is there therefore a similar sort of the Balmikis face barriers, for instance, to move out of their caste profession and move? Are there similar barriers which exist for the Bhishtis as well?
For the Bhistis, yes, the main barrier has been, especially for Jaipur Bhistis, is lack of education and like a long reliance on this kind of municipal jobs. And that's why they still, like, this kind of politics is still going on, and the Bhisti Samaj Sudhar Samiti has support of the Bhisti people there.
I see. How large is the
It's
community?
1,000 people in Jaipur, and I've been told around 1 lakh around Rajasthan.
I have two questions. One was related to private sector. That when private sector contracts are given, they also need sanitation workers.
Yes.
So they are also recruiting some people.
Yes.
So who is the private sector recruiting? Are they recruiting some Balmikis, Bhishtis or not? That's one question. And the second question is about occupational mobility. If Bhishtis are not getting these municipal jobs, are they looking around at least next generation with some education, with some skill acquisition in broadening their horizon and choices? So is that happening? Perhaps it's part of your larger study which you have not presented here. So what is happening with the community in general?
So with the community, in the second question first, with the Bhistis, what is happening is some of them are still clinging on to the old jobs, the municipal jobs that they do not have, and some of them have moved out of it, and like, so those who have had education and have actually moved out and branched out into, and most of these workers have basically started their own small businesses. So most of them have small shops, or they work as what do you call it, gemstone jewelry workers. But mostly, largely, the community still remains undereducated, and that's why they do not have more options outside of this job.
But have there been policies to try to spend more resource within this community to improve its human capital or education or skill acquisition rather than trying to fight and giving them secure jobs? I mean, has there been some
Yes, so Bhisti Samaj Sudhar Samiti, the community organization.
but even within the state, because you're saying that there is
No,
some
not with.
clientelism, or I mean, one could imagine that some
No,
political leader or could try to make effort, specific effort
yeah.
to bring these guys at schools and to enlarge opportunities, because this has been going on for 30 years now, since the 80s.
Yeah, since the 80s, yes. So for the state, the Bhisti is a very small community in like a very small group amongst the larger Muslim groups. So there is no specific policy per se for particularly for Bistis, but there are policies for minorities, for example, for Muslims, and like there are scholarships for students. There are a lot of scholarships for. There are also since they fall into the OBC category, there's a reservation. Yes, and also in jobs. But they have to get to that stage to qualify and to apply for those jobs. And regarding the private sector taking up, in the private sector, it's basically there's no criteria of caste, but mostly Balmikis have been re-employed or employed in the private sector in the waste collection work. There have been Muslims, but not specifically Bistis. There's like from Muslims from different castes also apply for these jobs. So private sector has taken up both from both groups. But the Valmiki, yes, their presence is really huge in the waste collection.
How do you explain that? How do you explain this that Bhishtis are excluded from private sector jobs as well? There must be something.
Yes, this one reason I can say is also because of the network. So most private sector employment, the people I have interacted with, the Balmikis who got these jobs, have been recruited because they knew these people. So when this private sector company came into Jaipur in 2016, they were looking for people, hiring people who could carry out waste collection work. And so first they contacted people they contacted were Balmikis because they have been traditionally doing this kind of job. So this has worked through a lot of networks, and in the case of Bistis, they have been left out of the network in sort of in this with the private sector coming in. So that is one reason why they have not been re-employed by the private sector.
Did they benefit from National Spy Karmcharis Financial Corporation, which was set up to reinvest spy karmcharis from the traditional vocation of cleaning and other things?
Just hold that question. I have after that, and we start with the meeting presentation, please.
I have a couple of points.
Yeah.
You say Bhisti. When you use the word Bhisti, that means they are a water caterer.
Yeah.
And when you say waste collector, so that's a sanitary worker.
Yeah.
So there are two different, professions, and you are mixing the two. I don't know. This is my question. I'm just asking. Secondly, the Bhishtis are very important for Rajasthan because Rajasthan is a water scarce zone, and water when transported can may not be economical, and it has to go to the various places where it is needed most. So the water economy is grounded there. So how do you rate the water economy? And the secondly is the difference between the two, and they are around Jaipur or Rajasthan in a quite big number, as you said, 100,000. So what is their state of affairs? Are they carrying the same goat bag, or they are carrying the sprinkler type of a iron material or a tin material? And what sort of activities they have to do, either within the because the Bhishti or a sanitary worker cannot go beyond certain manual because a car or a vehicle can go around to 10 kilometer. So what is the diameter of a Bhishti worker to cater in the municipal zone? Either in a colony they are recruited or in the park they are. So something like that.
So I'll first answer the last question. So since the 70s, they have been recruited. Now since the Bhisti job doesn't exist anymore in the municipal corporation, they work as peons or chowkidars, or so that has been their So in most ward office of the sanitation department, we can have a Bhisti who just comes there to close the doors, open the doors, bring tea. Yeah. So that kind of a job that, yes. So whoever left are doing that kind of a job. Um,
Just a quick thing,
Yes.
Gayatri, you said bring tea.
yeah.
It's okay for them to bring tea?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. So they are not Balmikis, they are Muslims. They.
Yeah,
No, but what is.
yeah, it's a question born out of the fact that I've had friends uh, whose guests have refused tea, I mean, very politely, of course, but because they knew that they were being served by people of the wrong caste. So it is. I mean, it's a recent phenomena in sort of major central institutions in that particular state, and so I'm just wondering whether that. But I'm glad to hear that it's sort of that part of the. So their religious identity, in some sense, dominates their caste identities, or they never really had a caste identity in some sense.
I think they don't really have a class identity here. A caste identity, yeah. And mostly they are serving the Balmikis in the office. They are serving mostly Balmikis or the sanitary inspector, who's most of the time not a Balmiki in the case of Jaipur. And so basically they are doing the work of an errand boy uh, in offices. Uh, then I forgot your first question. I don't know about the water economy in of Rajasthan.
They are still pursuing the water sprinklers in the garden or urinals or any places. Are they still doing the same thing?
There
That
are
is that is
in
very
the old city. In the old city, the urinals are cleaned
Bhishtis.
by Bhistis, but it's a very limited area. So there are not many Bhistis doing this job.
Or they must be, catering water in the coteries of higher
They,
officers, something like that.
yes, probably, but I'm not aware of that. But they are actually performing the urinal job and cleaning job, and they use goat skins still. Uh, and mostly, goat skin have also become a symbolic tool for Bhisti. So, when there are protests or they are demonstrating for these recruitment issues, they mostly carry them. So, this becomes a sort of a synonymous, yeah, with what a Bhisti is. Yeah. And also, as I told you, in the case of portraying Bhisti as an environment conservationist, they have been using this skin.
Otherwise, when they clean the urinals, do they use the skin or do they use other kinds of
No, they use that, and they also have pipes. Like there are water pipes which are attached in, so that helps. But this is only in the old city area, because otherwise the public urinals are cleaned mostly by Balmikis in. Mostly there are Sulab complexes which are cleaned by whoever is working in the. So not really a Bhisti.
Yeah,
I'm
the other
sorry.
question about the Safai Karmachari Financing Corporation, right?
I'm.
They benefited anyway, or they are not covered, not eligible for any financial assistance.
The Bhistis in the.
Because they are also.
I really don't know anything about. Like I know there is a National Finance Corporation, but I don't know like what it covers under the schemes that are available under the National Finance of Safai Karamchari Finance Corporation.
Actually, they work in such a quiet manner. Even spy Karamchari do not know that there is a commission settled for them.
Well, there is subcontracting to the private sector, as it seems to be the case. Why they couldn't have these kind of, quotas for job for private firms who bids? I suppose that these are done by procurement, or private firms will get some operating some water delivery or toilet management, all of this. So it will be very simple for the local authority to say, well, if you want to get that contract, you must have stuff like that. I mean, it could be very easy to. Has there been some attempt to do that?
No.
Even irrespective of whether or not it's good to resort to a private sector to do that. So it could be very simple to do that if it is deemed desirable. I mean,
Yeah, it could be, but it is not practiced.
it is not practical.
It is not practiced at all. There is no reservation in the private sector job.
In the procurement.
In the procurement, no. And in fact, the private sector, even the Balmikis are suffering because the private sector pay scale is much lower than what the municipal recruitment. So even if given a choice, a Balmiki would also prefer working for the municipal corporation than working for the private sector.
No, sure. But at least this
So,
could be
yeah, no, there's
it hasn't been really discussed or put in because even if it's
no it works the private sector the privatization it operates through bidding process.
yeah, but in
So
the bidding process, you can just write down, you must do this, and you must also hire this kind of worker. I mean, there is nothing that
yeah, but there is nothing about
contract like that, in the procurement.
yeah, there is nothing about on
There's of course a very large literature, not literature, very large discussion on the use of reservations on extending reservations in the private sector. And so far, the political consensus has been to not do that. Now, what you are suggesting is not a legal extension of reservation, but a contractual sort of imposition on the private sector or contractual mandate on the private sector. My sense is, given what I'm hearing about the various kinds of cases that have been used, that such a contract would get challenged in court, and the courts would most probably strike it down, because it would be seen as a sort of extension of this reservation to the private sector, which is not yet currently have legislative sanction. So I mean, if I was a bureaucrat advising a minister who came up with that idea, I would most probably say that. Now, the minister is, of course, still fully equipped to go ahead and do it. And in many of these cases, these contracts are drawn up by sort of business consultants from cities like here. So I doubt they look into this, achieving those kinds of social goals at that point in time. But one of the questions, if other questions, otherwise please go ahead.
yeah.
In Delhi Municipal Corporation, if a person is appointed either as a Bhisti or a sanitary worker, he gets, if he's a worker there, he gets 32,000 rupees
Yes.
per month. Now, how much, Jaipur Municipal Corporation is paying, this is one part. The next is the private people come in force because they bid for, let us say, 28,000 rupees per person. They grease the palm of the officers for the difference, and they pay to their labor, whatever they employ, around 350 to 400 rupees. So there is a big gap of about 500 or 600 to palm the grease. So there could be, and then the government has to pay, whether the state government or any government has to pay the social security, the pension, gratuity. Yes. So the government doesn't have to pay that. So they appoint the private contractors. So how far private contractors are doing such type of, if they are getting contracts, so that means the entire structure is getting, money, and they are enjoying that money also. And the worker, you can get it for 5,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees per month, as you know, very easily. So how far, when you say JMC is 420, so how far you are exploring these tidbits for there?
So in case of the salary structure is almost similar in Jaipur in the municipal corporations, around 30 with all the social security benefits. leave, and they also get a dress. They also get money for buying brooms. Yeah, between 30, 35,
13
No, no,
30.
per month. Okay.
And in the private sector, so since 2016, this door-to-door collection work in Jaipur has been given to a private company called BVG from Pune. But what BVG does is BVG has further subcontracted manual labor. So BVG has subcontracted this manual labor work to 5 or 6 uh, small, they call thekedars. So it's the thekedar's responsibility to get workers to. So in Jaipur now, for the door-to-door collection, there are only 4 people involved in one area. So there is a driver who drives the van which comes for waste collection. There are 2 helpers on each van, and then there is a supervisor in every ward area for. So depending on the size of the ward, there are between 8 to 10 vans running in one ward, uh, and so accordingly, so the driver is paid 9,000 rupees with and has PF and ESI benefits. The sweepers, they get 6,500 rupees. So you see the difference from the municipal.
But is there, I think Mr. Sagar was referring to the situation where, let us say, a municipal worker is hired, but he or she actually does not do the work but subcontracts it to somebody else, and then goes off and does whatever, runs a business, does whatever, etc. Do you see that kind of phenomena at all in Jaipur?
Yeah, basically there are many variants of how this works. So there are also people. For example, there are 2 helpers and a driver on a van. So on paper there'll be 2 helpers and a driver, but in practice there'll be just 1 helper and a driver working, and they have like a bogus helper working on paper, and so that money is that 6,500 is taken up by the company. So this is one way of doing it. Then other way of doing it is they again subcontract it to someone else for a smaller, again for some commission. So that is one way, and then there are also corruption in getting hired on the driver or helper job. So you pay to get the job. So there are lots of ways of doing this. Lots of chances. But the one thing I don't know about is like, do they have the right to subcontract it to some other company? Like the.
Now the law has been changed by the mercantile law has been changed.
Okay.
Labor law has changed.
Okay.
So now they can hire. Even
Because.
people, bankers can hire subcontractors. They were not supposed to. So the law has changed to put the pressure on the customers. So they have changed in favor of the private. Everywhere in finance also.
Okay. So because then they have this tipping price with the company, and the company has another tipping price with the thekedar. Okay. So that's why I was.
No, they can do it now. The mercantile, the labor law has changed.
Okay.
So without the labor law change, they cannot do it.
Because like, I don't know about it, but there was a politician, local politician in Jaipur who came out and he was threatening the company to take the company to court because the company is working on the thekedar system. So I'm like, I don't know about the law. That's why I'm asking.
It's very clear. This once you have been given a contract, you cannot further subcontract it. It is done all illegally and with local network of this thing. You please the politicians, the ward member, the local MLA, the local municipal chap. You bribe everybody, then subcontract the work. Otherwise, if work has been given to a particular contract, he cannot further give it legally to somebody else to do the job. But this happens rampantly everywhere throughout the India. Huh? Not only in this municipal work, even your teaching job is subcontracted, for your information. You know, a teacher who is appointed, he doesn't go to teach. It's very common in UP, it's very common in Bihar, it's very common in Uttarakhand. He appoints a local guy who is from that village to work as a teacher. That real teacher will get about 30, 40, 50,000 rupees. He will hire him for 10,000 rupees. And he never goes. This is happening for doctors. Forget about anything else. I'll tell you. So many things are happening in this country. All illegal.
It is not subcontract, it is hiring your, other people as support company. So it's not a subcontract. So you hire some in charge
Yeah.
and he looks after. So you are not giving a subcontract. So you are hiring a person who can manage, organize. So if you call it a subcontract, it is not subcontract.
Okay.
You hire a person who can manage and organize on behalf of me. So that is not a subcontract. But I have an arrangement with the person I hire as a supervisor on certain basis. That is between me and the person who looks after the job. So it is not a subcontract. It is an organizational structure to which a private person can have it. Whether you call it a subcontract is a terminology which is not approved by any other law. But the mercantile law says a private person can have people on contract basis, not on a regular basis.
That's a different
Because
issue.
regular basis you cannot get a job regularly.
That's a different
I'll
issue.
tell you.
That's a different issue.
It's there is a different meaning in a different sense.
No, what I can tell you is, like, for example, BVG has hired this in the zone that I'm working. BVG has hired a company called Diamond Manpower Company, who employs its own employees, but they are on the payroll of BVG. So that is not subcontracting.
It's not subcontract. Officially it's not a subcontract, but de facto it's a subcontract.
It's because
De jure it's not a subcontract.
because BVG is paying those people, right? So they are
Yes.
BVG employees.
Yes.
Right? It is just that for the purpose of finding those employees,
Yeah.
you have engaged a company that you said is Diamond, whatever. So Diamond's thing was to find those people and then provide them to BVG, who then sort of employs them. Right?
Okay.
And presumably Diamond gets some kind of finder's fee, like a
Yeah,
1 month salary for each person that they provide, etc., etc. Right? So this is like every firm will use, let's say, to hire you as a professor somewhere.
Yeah.
They will employ a firm to look for professors in some place, and they find 5 candidates, and finally you get hired. So that is like a job search facility, and therefore it's difficult to put that into that particular basis. However, if it was the case that the employees were actually paid by somebody else, but they did work which was directed by BVG, but BVG did not pay them. So I hire 10 people and I send them to BVG, and the idea is that you will listen to whatever the supervisor at BVG tells you. Then that becomes like outsourcing of that labor structure,
Okay.
which goes into a slightly grey area as to whether or not it will become a subcontract or not a subcontract, right? And
So the diamond
We-
person,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
diamond person is a branch manager of the original BVC.
Okay.
So he is on the payroll of BVC.
Hmm.
So he is given an authority to have a small sort of an organizational structure to garner the people under his skill, because then they will not be in problem. So the person concerned of Diamond will look after the organizations of that, and they have named it. So it's a sort of a subsidiary of PVC, not a subcontract of PVC. Something it has to come in connotations so that they can, get the law abated.
But then Diamond is paid in terms of the amount of waste they collect in a day, or like.
So they put in the account of PVC, because he is a branch manager. He is having to, a side of the coin. He is a employee of PVC,
Okay.
and he is the and he is the head of the Diamond also. So So these things are very common. We used to put our, when we used to run a big company, we have to have like this. Because we cannot, give each, look after about each. So we have a small company who looks after us. And that's a mutual arrangement. And we are also partners. Every company does it. I am telling you the practical aspect. I am not saying that it is more bad or against the law. Everybody does it. And it becomes easier also. Because anybody which is from diamond, I don't have to pay, anything. Then the diamond will pay. Suppose he is in problem, medical help,
Yeah.
anything. So the diamond will be there. So everything will not come to BBC. That's a big company. He doesn't have a time. Something like
Yeah.
this.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was just wondering if you have any sort of profile information on these PKLs, which might explain why they prefer Valmiki's or Vishnu's when they do something. Is there a kinship network? Is there something like that?
Yes, there is, but now this is initially it was so what they explained to me was when they came to Jaipur, they first went to the Balmikis to hire people in the sanitation. But now, since the word has spread since 2016, they have been operating. Uh, so other people are getting involved in the. But again, it is, for example, I came across a Rajput supervisor who then hired two other Rajput people, like from his community, from word to mouth. Whoever is looking for a job, go there. There's a chance of. But then, so there is a lot of community network, caste network also inside BVG in the private sector. But then again, here the turnover is really high because people come and they leave in 2 3 months. They or sometimes they leave in 1 month. They leave in. Sometimes they stay for 9 months, 1 year. So the maximum I've seen is one person who stayed one year. So it moves a lot, and they say it's mostly based on the bad organizational or management skills of Diamond Corporation. So, but I don't know really about this.
The two things if you just go back once, and I was looking at, there was one where you were looking at these, very early slide, we're looking at yes, the recreating the alliance, right? From looking at this slide, I felt that there was a break of the, you described the break between the Bhisti Valmiki alliance that came about. Largely sort of something that had come together on work basis, then got separated on the basis of religion, and then this seemed to be like a coming together on the basis of privatization, right? So recreating the work alliance in some sense. So could you speak a little bit about that, and especially also when this privatization happened, what happened to the municipal workers who were doing these jobs? What kind of, how were they accommodated? Were they compensated? How did that or by that time that already decreased the numbers, and it was not really a big issue?
So the first effort of privatization, like city-wide privatization, because earlier the privatization has been going on since 70s, but this is basically through contract working. But the main city-wide privatization first attempt was in 2000, which did not work because the unions came together and there was like violence and a lot of protest in the area. Then in 2012, again the government, the city municipality tried another attempt, and there was this company called A to Z, which was hired for privatization, door-to-door collection of waste. But and this was the time when both Balmikis and Bistis actually came together, and so basically what they did was they stopped private sector workers, which were also from their own community. So most of them were from Balmiki communities, from going and doing this job, and also some of the municipal employees. There was the police was involved, and like a lot of people were booked under some criminal act. Uh, but because of these efforts, they actually managed to. The company actually gave up the idea of working in the city and left the. And now the next company that has come up is BVG 2016. So it has worked in some ways. This alliance.
May take one.
Yes.
Suppose a person PVG is working in 75 sites, and all 75 sites they have divided into three groups, like gang number one, gang number two, and gang number three, and they do certain jobs. So for 75 or 60 jobs, let's say in a month, they need at least three persons or a support company who can work for BVG. Otherwise, that work will become difficult for BVG person. He will all the time 24 hours busy, and he will spoil his family life, so he won't be able to deliver. So to get it better organized, you have to split into compartments. Whether that is done, and your profit is, you are also sharing the profit. The BVG is also sharing profit with diamonds. It doesn't mean. But if BVG wants to earn much money, so then he has to put his entire, family and the person working 24 hours and keeping an eye on everything. So most of the people, family life gets spoiled and they can't look after their children and other things. So I think that is why it comes to that. So this is my personal experience. Yeah. So to just segregate and make it in seamless, so it becomes easier.
So the thing for the Valmikis are that they've traditionally been dealing with waste disposal, whereas the Bhishtis are more oriented towards cleaning urinals and all of this. So as far as from what I've seen and read, in terms of manual scavenging, where they like deal with human excreta, they faced a problem because they are the lowest of the low in the caste hierarchy. But from your conversation, I've learned that the Bhishtis have not faced the challenge of occupational mobility. They've been able to even cater to, like, selling tea. So I wonder, like, what is it that has contributed towards this, occupational mobility for the Bhishtis, and how can we kind of possibly learn from that and maybe incorporate that for manual scavengers as well? Because it's very interesting to know that they've not faced severe challenges. They've been uneducated, so that's a challenge.
That's a challenge, yeah.
But besides that, they haven't faced discrimination as such. So that's.
I am thinking, isn't it really based on the caste-based stigma that is attached to the Balmiki work, which the Bhisti do not have? So there is like already, and to start with, there is already they have an advantage over the Balmiki.
Valmikis. So even though they cleaned urinals, society doesn't feel uncomfortable.
No, for example, if amongst the Muslims, they would be considered a low caste Muslim, but not really low, like not like the lowest of the low, because they have other what do you call biradris who are lower than the Bhistis.
Okay.
So even in if you look at the hierarchy, I think it has to do with the occupational stigma that is attached to the work of the Balmiki.
Balmikis. But Balmikis have been dealing with mainly like waste disposal. It's not necessarily
Yes,
only
but
human waste. It's non-human waste as well.
yes, non-human waste as well. For example, in the municipal corporation, they also, so everything related to stray animals is also dealt by mostly the people who work for that is Balmikis, and mostly when there is a dead animal in the street so it's the Balmikis who actually dispose of the.
Okay, so possibly the Valmikis are possibly getting a preference because they're not that socially mobile and occupationally mobile compared to the Bhishtis. Like, with the contractors,
Yes.
like, do you think that the contractors prefer giving the jobs to the Valmikis also because it's more difficult for them to get another job?
No, so for the contractors, the preference for Balmikis was initially
Yeah.
because they had to set up their organization or like the setup in the city, and they did not have manpower for that.
Okay.
But now what is happening is more people from other communities and castes are coming in. So even there are lots of Muslims who've been recruited in the, and as I told you, like people leave this job a lot.
Yes.
So they have to what do you want, fish beyond the Balmiki pool to have a continuous supply of labor.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
And this private, it becomes general.
Yeah. Hmm.
Thank you.
It's interesting.
So it's been, finally, I'm not quite sure what exactly are the people who are the former municipal employees or the
come again. The former municipal employees.
The municipal employees were displaced by the privatization. How were they redeployed? And, what happened to their jobs?
Who would nobody was displaced by privatization. So the municipal employees who are already on the payroll of the municipality, they have not suffered. So what has happened is with the door-to-door collection has been given to the private company, but municipal like road sweeping and washing of public urinals, all that work is still with the municipal safai karamchari.
So previously, who was this work which is now being done by BVG was done by whom?
By the municipal sweepers who were on the payroll of the municipal corporation.
So their work has gone down, but their salary has remained the same.
Yeah, yes. Their work has gone down, but so initially there was no door-to-door collection.
Right, okay.
Okay, so anyway, a household would dump its waste on the street or somewhere outside the house.
There was no informal door-to-door collection also?
There were informal door-to-door collections. Yes, there were. In some areas, but not everywhere. So now this has been institutionalized citywide.
But, and in places where there was informal door-to-door collections, what happened? Do you have any sense of what happened to them?
So what happened was the private person who was he used to take money from the individual household people and collect their waste, but then they would go and dump it at a depot or some place from where the municipal sweepers had to collect the waste and take it to the from the depot to the dhalao or and further to the landfill.
And these people now, they were absorbed by the private sector, or they're just doing something else now?
No.
They have been displaced by this privatization contract? The ones who used to collect from the households and take it to the...
So some of them have been absorbed by the private sector, companies, and some actually still do private sector work. For example, for hotels, for commercial business streets, the contract is still with some other private companies.
Who are doing this?
So who are doing this?
And in Jaipur, are you aware as to who does sewer cleaning and manual scavenging work?
No. Sewer cleaning is mostly Balmikis and Muslims also. But manual scavenging, I don't know anything about it.
But sewer cleaning is still the same?
Yes, it is Balmikis and so mostly municipal employees, unless it's a private work. So if you have a, what do you call it, a manhole in the...
A septic tank.
A septic tank.
Yes.
Incident occurs only that comes to light.
Yeah.
So septic tank cleaning is it's not a municipal job.
Right.
So then you will ask a private sector person to come and do it. So you can have Balmiki, or mostly there are Balmikis and Muslims in Jaipur.
Who do this?
Who do this job.
And it's the same community which is doing this job?
No, Muslims
General
Muslims, not specifically Bhistis.
And finally, is the small number of Bhishtis that you're saying, is that preventing the kind of organization that Nicola was referring to, in the sense that, they, in some sense, you can ignore them because they really even
Do
if all
not
of them vote
matter.
against you, is not really very important. I mean, have you, in your ethnography, did you come across, did you interview any political leaders or anybody to try and understand why they were consistently being... This looks as if a lot of effort
Yes.
to try and not hire
Yeah.
people. I mean, otherwise, you don't hire, the court says, please hire 50 people, end of story, right?
So
But
what?
you are saying that they seem to have gone to a lot of effort to try and not hire them. So I'm trying to understand, is it very deep-seated prejudice that I will not hire them regardless of what the court says?
Yeah, I get your point.
Or what is it that is driving this kind of behavior?
So what is driving this is because when the political party is hiring, it's both Bhisti and Balmiki combined, which makes it a major vote bank. Because if you consider, you are right, if you take just the Bhistis, it's a very marginal, small number compared, like for someone to make such effort to deny them recruitment. But here we are talking about recruitment, which is not just Bhistis, it's also Balmikis. So then it becomes a large number of people, and then the government has the political parties have specific ways to capture one, like then it's divided on caste, community, or religion to capture. They use all these things to capture Bhistis separately, Balmikis separately, and different Dalit groups separately.
Is it possible that these people are just collateral damage in general move towards rent seeking? And it just doesn't seem to me that they are important enough either from an electoral perspective or otherwise for the government to actually go after them with any particular objective. Because to my mind, more likely because the government
So then, no, okay, we can consider that aspect, but then why would the government promise 5,000 municipal sweepers recruitment?
they don't promise, they just throw up these administrative issues.
There's another thing I want to just ask. Normally these bribes,
Yeah.
what we call corruption, bribes play a very important role in lower level recruitments. There will be hardly any spy Brahmachari who would have gained employment without paying bribe. But why is it that Bhishtis, are they averse to paying bribes, or why they are not able to get employment through bribery routes? Because all lower level they entail a lot of bribery.
So some Bhistis have also done that. It's not that Bhisti haven't done that, but the amount of Bhisti is very small in the in the whole sanitary workers. The percentage of Bhistis is small.
But that corrupt babus,
Yes.
they will never let go of any opportunity where they can make money by recruiting a person.
Yes.
Hardly, first thing they do is to fill up all the vacant posts, make as much money as possible, because no one knows whether he will be there for 8 months, 1 year or 6 months. So these recruitments are the first option, which they await.
So that's where caste comes into play. So like you are taking bribe, but you also want to privilege your own caste member. So that's why a Bhisti would be marginalized compared to a Balmiki.
No, but you are not saying that the posts have been filled up by Balmiki.
I did that. I said that.
All the posts not.
No, not all the posts. Like some posts. That's how because they were initially
Babu Lal
together.
became Babu Khan. You said that.
Yes.
But that may be few cases like that.
No, there were a few cases like that, and that's why they separated from each other because they discovered that we are fighting for the same cause, but under our nose they are taking up our own jobs. So
could it be just to take a point forward? It's possible that they've moved on to a more efficient form of corruption, where earlier you used to take a bribe at the time of hiring, which is a one-time small cost which you'll never get again because of what we hired the fellow is going to be that to be. Now instead you have annual contracts which keep repeating, for which you potentially get a much larger bribe. And these guys just sort of get, they're I guess the side effect of Shobit has created distortion in very Indian context.
Actually, that may not be the reason. Reason is that due to various pay commissions, that salary burden has increased so much that they are forced to resort to privatization, where instead of employing 100 persons, you can get the same job done by paying, by incurring one half of that, expenditure.
So I mean, in general, it seems to be more efficient.
And that is more, of course, what you are saying is also, that is also there. That every renewal will be recurring income.
Because of state commissions, we are now
No,
essentially
very,
leading to reduced public employment. That's not a good hypothesis.
very nominal situation is Bhisti will get 30,000 and the lecturer will be getting as 10,000.
Or if it's recruited publicly, you get 30,000.
If he is recruited.
But I agree with what you're saying is because the recent interviews that I conducted, so a lot of people said that like the lot of contractors, they also do not have interest in the recruitment, the public sector recruitment, because every, like you said, every contract gets renewed, they can save up a lot of money on the on a municipal contract by understaffing or creating fake, underpaying, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So but like I have just conducted a few interviews, so even I know that this is, so I just want to test how far this argument of election code of conduct, is it really?
Overall, it seems to be a more efficient system, both in terms of corruption and getting the work done.
Yes.
Actually, they are the worst victims of corruption. Whatever is that.
So you think this argument of election code of conduct
No, I
doesn't
think
fall into
that is
place?
That is not a very, because it is not a new scheme announced. During all that happens is that when elections are to be held, model code of conduct, the day it is elections are notified, comes into force. From that, no new scheme will be.
Yes. But even
And
old
now-
recruitments do not take place.
No,
Old schemes are not
recruitment,
finalized.
because they are as per the schedule, calendar of events. So this is not a new. They cannot announce 1 lakh new jobs for railways. That cannot be done. But ongoing process will be continued.
No, it doesn't. It is stalled till the next government comes in power.
Yeah, so it's not revoked, right?
No, it's not revoked. I never said it is revoked. Yeah.
But elections means new announcements before that, because every government wants to.
But if you look at this pattern also, the recruitments are just announced a year before the elections. For example, there were elections in 2013, the recruitments were announced in 2012, and they say, oh, before the elections come in, we will take you in. But the process takes so long that it doesn't happen, and then it is stalled till.
I mean, in principle, which is why we were talking about how much benefit
Yeah.
stuff is, because so the same thing used to happen with regularization of colonies in Delhi,
Uh-huh.
right? That you make a promise close to election because that you hope will get people's votes because they are believing the promise, and then but you don't actually follow through on the promise because it's too expensive, because you're planning to do other things, etc., but no intention of following through the promise. Whatever happens, election happens, you win, you lose. Whatever government is there, whether it is the Congress or the BJP, they again make a promise close to the election, hoping that people have forgotten in the last 4 years, right? As an economist, I find the forgetting part to be a difficult thing to model in some sense and understand, but if you think if that is what is happening, it'd be interesting to have you interviewed any political leaders or others about, or bureaucrats about why, do you have any narrative from their side about why this pattern is there or not, or?
No.
No.
Yeah. So I should do that. I should see it
So
from
this
the.
code of conduct argument is something that was told to you by the Bhishtis?
No.
So where did you?
So see, yeah, a little bit, yes. But yes, a little bit, because they were explaining the whole thing about political clientelism, and then they said that every time they do this, they make you the promise, and then Achar Sahita aa jata hai, and then Achar Sahita. So they basically, yeah, they fed the idea to me in the sense they told me that this election code of conduct has actually.
So then it's very possible that it's one of those easy excuses that the government usually uses when there is a large information asymmetry
Yes. That's what they say. That's what they said. That the government tells us, oh, we cannot do much because now there's the election code of yeah, 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 yeah. So that's why.
Because I don't think there's any legal validity to this topic. They cannot, government business cannot stop and then start all over unless there is an election.
No, I checked. From whatever I checked, it.
No, the facts are correct. I'm saying legally there is no grounding for them to restart the whole process just because of elections. They might be doing it under
Yeah,
the
yeah,
powers.
yeah, yeah.
And
No, see.
another thing is that lot of posts at higher levels have been created at their cost by abolishing posts at class 4 level and showing these as matching savings for generating posts at higher levels. For example, if there was one executive officer in municipal corporation, now there will be 3 more additional executive officer, assistant executive officer to assist him. To create that post, they have to have generate internal savings. That they do it by showing certain posts at lower levels have been abolished, and these people being at the lowest level of hierarchy, they do not even know what is happening. They will tell them सुप्रीम कोर्ट का रूलिंग आ गया है, आचार संहिता आ गया है, ऊपर से ऑर्डर इशू हो गया. That is how it works. Otherwise,
typical excuse.
These that Ajaz Sanhita, which they, I don't think if you had checked up with the senior officers, they would have told you that is not that reason.
No, so it's a catch-all excuse that the government often uses.
And that budgetary, how they play with finances and figures and all that is also there. But I mean, good thing is that you have focused on this Bhistis, which is a very, very forgotten community there, and somebody has tried to spend her time, energy, and lot of effort.
So what's your conclusion of this? You're going to get to the conclusion of your study? What would be the main take-home kind of lesson I could get from this thorough investigation?
So what I was trying to say is that because of this model, the political party has used model code of conduct to basically deny the. But recently I was conducting interviews, and there is also now there is another sort of labor politics and this privatization, the contract workers, and how they take state to court every time every time a recruitment is announced. So like even I am doubtful that this argument like holds ground, but I still haven't really unearthed the other route. So that's why I can't really say much. Like
So unearthed the root, you mean which root?
the politics of contractors every time going to the court and stalling recruitment. So
you're saying that private contractors stall recruitment in public employment so that their own contracts are continued and structured.
Yes. As I was mentioning on the lottery system. So and what they do is basically they encourage Safai Karamcharis to file a petition, and they have their own they pay them to file the petition in the court because they don't because they have the means to do that, and then again there will be a stay order for example right now the stay order was lifted on 16th August. So because there were no hiring because of the stay order from the, so now it's been lifted on the 16th of August, so I don't really know what happened after that. So elections will also come. So my election theory, I don't know. I still want to cling to it.
Thank you so much. This has been, of course, a detailed study, and I'm glad that you were able to present it here. Thank you.